Hello, and welcome back to the No BS Home Buyers Live series. Today we are breaking down the home buying process into simple, easy steps to understand so you can go from thinking about home buying to actually owning a home. And I have some good news and I have some bad news today. The good news is that every house has problems. The bad news is that every house also has problems. So we are in a bit of a catch-22 with homes. So today we're going to be touching on home inspections and going over different things about the home inspection, what you can do during a home inspection, and things to look out for. So we will dive right in. And I just want to give you a heads up. I am a one-woman show today. So if I have kids interrupting, I apologize in advance, but we are going to do inspections today. So let's get into it. First off, I kind of like to set the stage that a home inspection isn't you looking for a perfect house. There should never be 100% home inspection that nothing ever comes up. That's unrealistic. But it is to help you understand the home that you're buying. So let's just reframe what a home inspection actually is. A lot of people actually think of it as a pass-fail thing, and that is not at all what a home inspection is. The inspector will not tell you, yes, this house passes, or no, this house passes. That's not a thing. Sometimes you'll see that with an appraisal on certain types of loans where, hey, you're not going to get financing, but on an actual inspection, that is not a thing. So let's talk about what a home inspection actually is. We have to think of it as a professional evaluation of the home's major systems and components. So an inspector that you as the buyer would hire would go in and is going to look at the roof. They're going to make sure that, all the shingles are intact. You don't have a defective shingle, that there's no penetrations or things or hail damage on the roof that are going to cause potential issues later. A lot of times they're also going to check and make sure that there's proper ventilation to make sure that the roof is breathing, so the life of the roof lasts as long as it's supposed to. Another major thing they look at is foundations. If you are in an area that has basements, this is probably going to be a huge part of your inspection, and the foundation is very, very important. It holds up the whole house. So you want to make sure that it's in good shape, and an inspector is going to look at that. Now, keep in mind, inspectors are not structural engineers in most cases. So if there is a problem, they're typically going to refer you to someone that has a little bit more knowledge and ability to check the structural integrity of the property. So, but they can give you an idea of, hey, watch out for these things, or hey, you're seeing some cracking here. Typically that means there's water pooling up on the outside, just different things to look for. Additionally, they're going to look at electrical. They're not going to typically test every outlet, though they will a lot of times have a little tester that will tell you like if it's a reverse polarity or if the GFCI isn't tripping. So an electrical quick overview, but they're not electricians, so keep that in mind, but they should be able to give you an idea of some safety hazard things, or things that just aren't quite up to par. Additionally, they will talk about plumbing or check out the plumbing. Most inspectors that I know will run all of the systems, so they'll flush all the toilets, fill the bathtubs, fill the sinks, and make sure that they're draining properly. Sometimes the plumbing inspection can pull forward more issues potentially with the sewer, which could lead you to getting a sewer scope. So you want to just kind of check out all of the plumbing, make sure everything's working, you've got good water pressure, and the inspector is going to do that by running all these systems within the house. And then HVAC, or also known as HVAC, is the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. So your furnace, your AC, they will check those and make sure that they're running. A lot of times they'll have this little fancy gun that'll check the differentials and temperatures, just to make sure that it's heating up or cooling down at the proper speed, checking freon levels, different things like that. One thing I do want to know is not every inspector is going to get real deep into the HVAC inspection. My personal favorite company around here locally, they do a very in-depth HVAC inspection because they also have an HVAC company. So they take things apart. They can tell you if you have a cracked heat exchanger. They can tell you like, hey, a couple of these pieces and parts are really old, corroded. You should probably replace them. So just know when you're ordering your inspection exactly what you're getting and what you're not getting, so you're not disappointed later if, you buy the house, you close on it, and then all of a sudden the furnace goes out because of a part that should have been replaced. All right. Another big inspection that they're going to do is checking the windows and doors, making sure they're opening and closing properly, making sure none are cracked or broken, and just the general integrity of the windows and doors. Sometimes you'll have a seal leaking and then it'll make it really ugly and foggy. Just different things like that. And then attics and crawl spaces. So attics, depending on where you are in the United States, may have some of the plumbing up there. It also might have a furnace up in the attic or different utilities up there, but they're also checking the underside of the roof to make sure that it is not moldy and that proper airflow is getting through there. Sometimes there's pests up there, think bats, raccoons, squirrels. They want to check these different areas to check for all of these things. Same goes for crawl spaces if basements aren't a thing. And then other just general safety concerns. So what an inspector does is they come into a house, they're there for 3 or 4 hours typically, and they just kind of run everything they can that's in the house. They kind of try to stress test it just to see what does or doesn't work. Sometimes things don't pop up until after the home closes, and you have to understand that an inspector is there at a certain point in time, and they can't predict the future. They can't see through walls, and they can't test every single thing. So it is limited to what they are able to test and what is happening at that time. So if something were to happen after an inspection, don't think you had a bad inspector. Things just really do happen. We call it Murphy's Law. I mean, that's just a law in general, but Murphy's Law, what can go wrong will go wrong. That will happen when you buy a house. So just understand that that's a thing and it's okay. But that is typically what an inspector is going to be looking at. And there's different inspections that you can add on to like a whole home inspection. You can add specifically termite or pest, wood destroying insects. Your bank is typically going to require that if you're getting a loan on the property anyway. They don't want to lend on a termite's dinner, And then additionally, if you are on a well or have a septic system, a lagoon, a lot of times to transfer property, there will have to be some sort of inspection on that. Radon is probably the most popular add-on that I see around here. Radon is a gas that comes up through the ground, and the radon system is just a pole that goes under the concrete and then has a fan that gets all of that gas out. That one's pretty common. That does take 2 days to test, so you want to make sure that your agent and the sellers know that. Sewer scopes, that would be taking a little camera down the plumbing lines and out to the main sewer lines. Obviously, if you have a septic system, different situation, but it just checks to make sure that that sewer line is intact, working. A lot of times you'll find tree roots in them, and that's not something that automatically says you have to replace the sewer line, but it's something to be aware that, hey, this is going to take some probably annual maintenance just to keep those lines cleared out. Additionally, you can always test for mold. I personally have never actually had anyone test for mold. There's been some times when it was pretty visible and we had some remediation done. Asbestos, depending on the age of the property, asbestos may be present. A lot of times you'll see it wrapped around like old heating lines and things, or old plumbing. It can really vary. So it'll be around those or in insulation. If it's in an area that you're walking around constantly, a lot of times you want to get that removed because you're breathing in those things. You will also see it a lot in some flooring. There's a specific tile that was just an asbestos-like tile that was super popular in its day. And it's a problem when you remove it because you're breaking up the particles and then inhaling the particles. Typically, if it's just on the floor, I've been told it's not a big deal, but do your research. That's why they have asbestos tests if you want them. Sprinklers, that's typically an add-on and not always included. So if there's a sprinkler system and you want to make sure that that's working and want to know how that works, you might have to add on an inspection on that. And then specific property specialty things like pools. Pools will require their own inspection, and typically is not by the traditional home inspector. You're typically wanting like a pool company to come out and make sure that everything is working properly, and just to be aware of all of those additional possible inspections is really good to kind of have in your back pocket. So when you are buying a home, you're looking at all these different things and being aware. But one thing to note is that the inspector works for you. You are the one paying for the inspector. You are the one hiring the inspector. So if you have questions, you need to be asking them. And your inspector should be available even after your inspection walkthrough. There's a lot of things coming at you at once during an inspection, and you might not remember all of your questions. And something might pop up later, and you're like, I don't remember hearing about that. Could you tell me a little bit more? That is a good opportunity to reach back out to the inspector or even your agent and have them help you during that process. Because again, you are hiring them. So take advantage of that for yourself. Okay, let's talk about what an inspector actually does. So we've talked about the whole going through the house and that process of what they do, but a lot of buyers are assuming that the inspector is there to tell you whether or not you should buy this house. And I'm going to be just blatant with you. That is not what they are there for. It is not their decision. It is not their money. They don't get to tell you whether or not you should buy that house. That is your job to decide. Their job is to identify the issues, explain different findings, educate you as a buyer, and document any specific concerns so that way you have something to reference back to. They can also, during their education process, they can teach you a little bit about how the house works, like where the water shutoff is, what your thermometer or like the digital thermometer on the wall, how that works, different things like that to help you actually physically use the house. But they're not going to tell you, oh, you shouldn't buy this house. This is not the one for you. One, they don't know you at all. Two, they don't know anything about your history. And three, it's not their decision. It's not their money. So don't expect that out of them either. And they also aren't there to help you negotiate repairs. They're reporting what they found, not what you're going to be asking for necessarily. So just remember that they are there for that moment in time. They can't predict the future. They can't see through walls as much as we wish they were like superheroes. They just can't do those things. So we have to take what they give us and use our knowledge and ability to make the decision for ourselves. All right, now let's talk about some normal things versus like red flags that we see a lot during inspections, kind of like where our buyers tend to panic. Normal items that you'll see in every single house, I don't care if it is brand stinking new, just built, there will be something that comes up on the inspection. And that could be as simple as like a loose handrail, there's some missing caulk, there's a minor crack in the wall, the doors are sticking because it's summertime and all the wood is swelling, or like they forgot a GFCI in the bathroom or the kitchen. The appliances are old and the hot light button on the stove is always on, or just like small little maintenance items. Those are going to be common in every single house that you buy. It doesn't matter, brand new or old, there's going to be something wrong. And that's pretty much the inspector's job, is to find little things that, and big things. Don't want to discount that, but it's to find things that are not maybe working properly or not up to par with expectations. So don't freak out when you see those things. Most inspection reports can be like 40 pages long, whether or not it is the easiest, cleanest inspection you've ever seen, or if it is really, really bad, it might be even more than 40 pages. So don't be taken aback by how long the inspection is. They're all very long. They go through every component in the house and give it kind of its own little rating. So expect a long inspection report. Now let's talk about red flag items. These are things that, might deter you from purchasing the property. I'm not going to say it's going to cancel your contract. That is ultimately your decision. And most things are fixable. It just takes money and time. So Red flag things that I would really be talking with my realtor about negotiating on would be foundation movement. If there's significant movement that needs braced, we do a lot of beams here. Sometimes you have to replace whole walls, or just things like landscaping that's causing the movement. Those can be addressed. Structural concerns. If the house is about to fall down and you bring out a structural engineer and they're like, stay out of that house, that might be a big red flag to reconsider your purchase. But again, money can fix about anything. Significant water intrusion. So again, landscaping plays a really big part in a lot of our foundation and water issues. So one, you want to check on that. And it's not uncommon to ask for a landscaping fix if it's really causing problems. Other things would be like active roof leaks, or if the roof has hail damage. And quite frankly, lately, at least where I'm at, we're having problems with roofs that are even like older than 7 years. Insurance companies don't really want to insure them. So making sure that the roof is insurable can be part of your inspection process. Major electrical hazards is another big thing. That's probably the thing I see get asked for the most on an inspection report, even not if it's major, but like major ones with live wires sticking out, not covered, like that's a very serious safety hazard. The GFCIs not in the kitchen and bathrooms can be a very serious safety hazard. If there's water to get on it and it doesn't trip, that's a problem. Sewer line issues. If you do that sewer scope and you find like, hey, the whole line is cracked and broken, you probably need to get that replaced. And then additionally, if during the inspection you're seeing slow drainage, that's a sign that you should get a sewer scope, because that might be a problem with the line going out. Anyway, side note. Big mold concerns. If there's a lot of mold in the property, a lot of times you can smell it, but not always. So if the inspector finds signs of mold, that could be a trigger to look in to see if there's more, but then you might want to hire a remediation company to actually get it out and gone. Or failing HVAC systems, the furnace, AC, those are expensive things to replace. And most first-time home buyers don't have like $13,000 to just drop on a new furnace and AC. So that is something during your inspection period you really want to make sure you're covered for, whether that is through replacement or through a home warranty, just really kind of keeping yourself covered from those things. But just to re-clarify, not every red flag should be a deal killer, but every big red flag really should deserve some attention, and your agent should be able to help you negotiate the things that are going to be really important for you monetarily and physically for living in the property. So you just want to make sure that you are working with your agent and getting these things addressed properly. So what happens after the inspection? This is where buyers get super nervous, but the options are you can proceed as is, as the contract states. You can request repairs. My preferred method is to request a credit, so that way you get to decide who does the work and when it gets done. Or you can renegotiate the contract in general, whether that be price, credits, repairs, all of the things. Or during your inspection period, you can also walk away. And inspections typically only get the physical side of things, but inspections are also for the monetary side of things. If you're finding out you're applying for this loan for the bank and it is way beyond what you ever expected and you truly can't afford it, your inspection period is also to check and make sure that your finances are lined up properly and that you are comfortable. Because even if you are comfortable in the bank, or you're uncomfortable, but the bank's like, no, you're still good, they'll still give you a loan and you won't be able to get out on the appraisal. So use your inspection period not only for the physical aspects, but also the monetary aspects as well. And most inspection negotiations are typically focused on safety hazards and like functionality hazards. We don't really care about cosmetic things. Let's be honest, you're probably going to paint the whole house anyway. So cosmetic is not the big issue here. We're worried about safety and functionality issues. All right. So biggest mistakes that I see, I'm sorry, I'm running long on this one. Expecting a perfect report. There is no house that will have a perfect report. Freaking out on every single item. save yourself the heartache. It's not worth it. Focus on the big ones that really matter to you and the functionality of the house and safety. Another problem is ignoring major issues and just kind of blowing it off and putting it on the back burner, thinking nothing's going to happen. But if you don't have any savings saved up to fix that, you're playing a dangerous game. So please don't. Focusing on cosmetic things. Again, we're focused on safety and functionality issues, and then skipping the inspections entirely. Since this is targeted towards first-time homebuyers, I highly do not recommend doing this. Even experienced homebuyers miss things without doing inspections. Obviously, you didn't look real in depth at the property, so don't do that, especially if you don't have to. If it's not that competitive, please just keep your inspection. You never know what's going to come up. And then don't confuse maintenance with disaster. Sometimes sellers don't do the traditional maintenance that you're supposed to. And so, yes, it looks bad. And, through time, that is going to cause problems. But don't automatically assume that the house is falling down in a terrible house. Some things just need to be addressed more frequently than others. But, okay. Now we have hit on pretty much all of the topics. I just want you to remember that the purpose of an inspection is to create more confidence for you when you're buying the house and to be confident in the house that you're buying. So you're learning about the biggest purchase you're going to make. It's okay if it has problems. Every house is going to have problems, but it's how you're going to address it, how you're going to fix the things, if they even truly need to be fixed, or if you just need to monitor them. An inspection is information. It is not something to fear. And the more you know, the better you can negotiate. So don't forget that inspections are very important. Don't write them off. And hopefully this gave you kind of a good overview of what inspections to potentially ask for. And if you're approaching the inspection phase and you need someone to kind of help understand what's going on, I'd be happy to help or connect you with an agent that can help you. Your realtor is going to be your lifeline during this. They see these every single day. So really rely on them and allow them to give you good guidance. But ultimately, it is your decision, and you have to decide if the property is worth it to you. All right. Well, I will get off my long-winded soapbox here. And next week, we are going to dive into appraisals. So that way you can keep moving forward with some more clarity, confidence, and understanding of what is going on when you're under contract. And this is the No BS Homebuyers Live series. So thank you for tuning in. And we are taking the steps and making them simpler so you can go from thinking about buying to actually owning. And I will see you next week. All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.